Hello, and welcome back to this channel. Can you believe it? I can believe it. I'm finally back with book content. I'm so happy to be here. Hello and welcome back to this channel. If you've never been here, my name is Rebecca and I haven't uploaded a book video to this channel, generally very little to this channel, in a long time, and that is because I was writing my master thesis. I am in a Master of Science program and my master thesis entailed a lot of lab work, so I was basically in lab for 1 year, and I kind of looked at my uploads and I think I was still regularly reading and kind of uploading until like May, and then it just completely dropped off, and then you only heard from me every once in a while. So hello, I am back again. I've handed in my thesis. I still have to defend, but I'm kind of procrastinating working on that presentation. So here we are. With us is my new little Seattle cup. I was just in the States visiting my family, but also visiting some friends on the West Coast. That's why I have my little Seattle cup here. I have an espresso. Last year, of course, I accumulated a lot of books. So I think in March I went to visit a friend in Berlin, and Berlin has some English-speaking bookstores. So of course I went nuts. I bought some books and I didn't read any of them. And my Book of the Month membership was still like up. So I was still selecting books every month, and every once in a while I would read one, and I listened to some audiobooks. But if we're being real, I read nearly nothing last year. I read quite a bit until like the mid of the year, and then we started working on publishing a paper, and I had to do my own lab work, and it's all went to shit after that. So basically, I would like to go through my post-grad TBR, but at the same time, this is also like all of the books that I was not able to read last year and that I can hopefully read this year. Let's just get right into them. So the first book on the stack is Beasts of Little Land. Beasts of a Little Land is a book that I bought in Berlin, so this is part of one of my book hauls, Berlin book hauls. I think what I had in mind when I was buying this is that I kind of had just finished Pachinko, and I really enjoyed Pachinko, and so this kind of gave me similar vibes. It is 1917, and Korea is under Japanese occupation. The country is yet to be divided into North and South. With the threat of famine looming, a young girl named Jade is sold by her family to Miss Silver's courtesan school in cosmopolitan Pyongyang, an act of desperation that will cement her place in the lowest social class. But the city's days as a haven are numbered. Jade flees to Seoul, where she forms a deep friendship with an orphan boy called Jung-ho, who scrapes together a living begging on the streets. As Jade becomes a sought-after performer with unexpected romantic prospects, Jung-ho is swept up in the revolutionary fight for independence. Soon, Jade must decide between following her own ambitions or risking everything for the one she loves. So that's what this is about. This sounded very interesting, so we're gonna check this out soon, hopefully. Next book over here, I'm just gonna keep taking from both of the stacks. This one is called Indian Enthusiasm, and this is actually nonfiction. This is kind of a difficult topic to talk about, but anyway, in Germany there is this thing that people are kind of obsessed with Native Americans, and they also dress up as natives, or Indianer as they call them, on Fasching, which is kind of like carnival. There was just now carnival, like the day before yesterday, and it's the same discussion every year. People always dress up their kids or their own people or whatever, natives, or in like native costumes or indigenous costumes. I mean, you have the same problem on Halloween in the States, and I just kind of wanted to deep dive into the history of, you know, Germans and Native Americans and why they glorify them, because there is an actual history there that has to do with the Third Reich. There's a big history behind that, and this is part of my research to that. This is indigenous responses to Indian enthusiasm as it's coined in this book. On this stack here, there's actually another book about that topic. It's called Kindred by Choice, Germans and American Indians Since the 1800s. So also a nonfiction book about this weird-ass relationship from afar by Germans just thinking Native Americans are super cool and romanticizing everything. So something to look forward to. Definitely a video that I'm going to make on my German channel. If you're interested in this, let me know, then maybe I'll do a translated version on the channel here. Okay, let's keep going. The next book on this ridiculously large and unstable pile is Greek myths. And this is, I think, just a classic myths book, so this has all kinds of Greek myths in it. It is retellings of just several Greek myths. I never really read them. So I was thinking, because I am enjoying a lot of mythology right now, or retellings of mythology, I thought I should get like a book that also like explains all of the characters and how they relate to each other, the different gods. And this, it looked like a really nice book when I saw it in Berlin in person, so I picked it up, and it has beautiful illustrations inside. So I generally think this is one of those books that you can just kind of pick up, read a story from, check out the relationships between the people when you're reading something else, just like as a quick reminder of all of the mythology. Then over here we have a book that is called Ich war eine Ärztin in Auschwitz, which translates to I was a doctor in Auschwitz. And this book is written by Gisela Pearl, and I have since found out that this was originally published in English, so I'm sure it is available in English, and I might write the English title in the description box if I remember. It's a memoir. It's this woman's memoir of being a doctor in Auschwitz. She was a gynecologist by trade. She learned to be a gynecologist before, and in Auschwitz, so on the concentration camps, she would take care of other women's gynecological needs. So she would do abortions, for example, after they had been raped, or would take care of anything else. A lot of women, of course, did not get their period when they're in Auschwitz because they were malnourished, but that doesn't mean that you don't have any needs, and this is her recounting of the different kinds of patients that she had, that she treated, and that she helped. So super interesting. I did start reading this, but got caught up in my thesis, so we'll start up with it again. The next book on this little pile here is Little Women, a book that I have been really trying to read for ages, and I just never really did, and I really think that I should. Now, I've also heard that I think 2019 movie is supposed to be really fantastic, so I might just take a shortcut and watch the movie, but I think I'm just going to try and read the book beforehand. Sometimes I don't really enjoy classics. There are some classics I really don't enjoy, and there are some that I really enjoy. So we'll see what this one is like, but yeah, I feel like I should at least give it a try, and this is also a really cute edition that matches some other classics that I have on my shelf. The next book on this stack is also mythology, The Silence of the Girls. So we've heard a lot about Troy, and we've also kind of heard a little about Briseis in The Song of Achilles, and I think that's not a very accurate version of her story. Let's put it that way. It's a little romanticized. So this is like a more actual account of her story, so I'm excited to read this. I've been getting into more mythology lately, as you can notice, or lately. A year ago I was. Let's see if I still feel like it now, but The Silence of the Girls is definitely on my TBR. Let's have a look over here. This book is Die Wand, which is a German book, surprisingly. I do not very often purchase German books. I just enjoy reading in English. That's another whole story for itself. But Die Wand is somewhat dystopian. It sounds pretty crazy, but basically a woman wakes up in the middle of the mountains, and she has like this wall around her that's invisible, and beyond that wall, no life exists. That's all I know. And it sounded really intriguing because I love dystopian things, so this sounds really amazing to me. No idea what else is happening in the story. That's literally all I know, and it sounded fascinating to me. As you're going to see, most of these books are Book of the Month books because last year, like I said, I still had my Book of the Month subscription. I do the yearly subscription, so I basically pre-purchase my credits for the whole year. What ends up happening is even if I can't read the books, I kind of still am getting books because I pre-purchased the whole thing. Fun fact, also this year, I kind of wanted to do like a book buying ban because I have so many unread books at home. And then I forgot that the subscription auto renews. So now I once again have a yearly Book of the Month subscription. So I will have a book buying ban except for the Book of Months books. Which is okay, I guess. So this is Bloomsbury Girls, and I believe this is a historical fiction, and we can read what it says inside. Bloomsbury Books is a quiet, dusty, tradition-bound London bookstore that has persisted and resisted change for 100 years. Run by men and guided by the general manager's unbreakable 51 rules. But in 1950, it's a new world, and at Bloomsbury Books, the girls in the shop have plans. In a world filled with dazzling characters from Daphne du Maurier to Peggy Guggenheim to Samuel Beckett, these three women with their complex web of relationships, goals, and dreams are all working to plot out a future that is richer and more rewarding than anything society will allow. So I thought this sounded pretty interesting. I'm kind of into historical fiction. I really enjoy those books. I've kind of found that I really like them. And sometimes these Book of the Month books don't really sound so good. Like, they're just not pitched very well. I'm never sure if I'm like getting a good book or not, but this sounded okay, and I think it was probably a selection of like Sounds good enough. Then another book of the month book is Take My Hand. And I really love this cover art. I would like you to have a look at that. I mean, isn't that beautiful cover art? So that's kind of one of the reasons why I purchased this book, or why I went for it, is because I just really like the cover art. And I'll give you an idea of what it's about. Montgomery, Alabama, 1973. Fresh out of nursing school, Sybil Townsend intends to make a difference, especially in her African American community. At the Montgomery Family Planning Clinic, she hopes to help women shape their destinies to make their own choices for their lives and bodies. But when her first week on the job takes her along a dusty country road to a worn-down one-room cabin, Sybil is shocked to learn that her new patients, Erica and India, are children, just 11 and 13 years old. Neither of the Williams sisters has even kissed a boy, but they are poor and black, and for those handling the family's welfare benefits, that's reason enough to have the girls on birth control. As Sybil grapples with her role, she takes India, Erica, and their family into her heart, until one day she arrives at their door to learn the unthinkable has happened, and nothing will ever be the same for any of them. Decades later, with her daughter grown and a long career in her wake, Dr. Sybil Townsend is ready to retire to find her peace and to leave the past behind. But there are people and stories that refuse to be forgotten, must not be forgotten, because history repeats what we don't remember. Evidently, this book is inspired by true events, so it sounded really good, honestly, and the cover art was just so beautiful. So, yeah, I just thought I would take it. This I actually purchased in Cologne at a bookstore, and this is A Long Petal of the Sea. I think I've already mentioned this in some other book haul or something. I've heard so many good things about this, but this description is super long, and I also know that it's historical fiction, and it plays in the late 1930s Civil War in Spain. And I honestly just don't know much about the Civil War in Spain. I also traveled to Spain the first time last year, and I was just like, you know what, I need to maybe know more about this history, because the Civil War and like its outcomes and everything are quite recent history for Spain, and so I should probably know more about that. And I think historical fiction is a very nice way of just learning things about histories of other countries or places. So another book over here is Health at Every Size. I've also talked about this book, I think, before. This is another nonfiction, and it is about health at every size. This is from a person that has done a lot of research on like the different myths behind having fat or being fat and how that relates to health. And I was just super excited to read this book. This is really good that we're going through these books, because there are so many videos I want to make this year, because I have the time to actually make them and research them and do them well, so we can do this book. That would be so much fun. Oh my God, Health at Every Size. So we have World War Z as another book over here. So I don't think I have to say too much about this, because everyone's probably familiar with the movie World War Z. I actually never saw the movie World War Z, I just know of it. I know that it's like a zombie apocalypse kind of movie, and I've also heard that the book is much better than the movie, which is to be expected with most of these things. So I Okay, another book over here is The Unsinkable Greta James. Now, I have no idea what this book is about. Let me read this really quick. So I'm just going to read the really quick quip at the top, and it says, an indie musician reeling from tragedy and a public breakdown reconnects with her father on a week-long cruise in this pitch-perfect story about the ways we recover love in the strangest of places. From best-selling author Jennifer E. Smith. So I guess it's a little bit about heartbreak. There's a little other things in here. I do have to say this is like not my most favorite cover. I don't know, it doesn't really speak to me. So this is another. Let's continue with my stack, and that is The Good Left Undone. Now also, don't know what it's about. I forgot, because by the time I picked these. Matilda, the Cabrelli family's matriarch, has always been brusque and opinionated. Now, as she faces the end of her life, she is determined to share a long-held secret with her family about her own mother's great love story with her childhood friend Silvio and with dashing Scottish sea captain John Laurie McVicar, the father Matilda never knew. Interesting. So Ready Player One. I definitely know the movie of this book, and this is basically one of those like cyberpunk virtual reality kind of books, so I guess the world around us has eroded to bits, which it might anyway. Maybe this is just a look into our future, but since the world is like sucks a lot, humanity has developed a mechanism to kind of step into virtual reality and basically live in a different place. And I think if you beat like some kind of high score or some kind of game, you can be like ultimately rich or whatever. And that's kind of the premise of Ready Player One. That's what I remember from the movie. I don't know if it's different in the book, but I have seen in Noelle Gallagher's videos that this was really, really good. She recommended this book quite often, and so when I have extra credits left, sometimes I'll pick up other things. So this, I think, was one of those extra credits when I just had an add-on at Book of the Month, and so we can check out Ready Player One. Okay, then let's check out what we have over here. This is Fiona and Jane. I kind of remember a little bit about why I picked this, and I think that's because the Fiona and Jane are like two friends, and I think they write each other letters, and I think they're Taiwanese American. I traveled to Taiwan in 2018 and have since been kind of interested in following the country and like I don't know, interested in like the waves of immigration from Taiwan and to Taiwan, because it's a very, I don't know, interesting situation that they're in, and I'm always kind of worried that Taiwan will not exist as it does today sometime soon. We will see. But that's why I really want to support Taiwanese authors, and so when I saw this on Book of the Month, I was directly like, yes, definitely getting that. Really want to look at that. Okay, let's stick to the other pile for now. So, the next book over here is Piranesi, and I think I had already shown this book in a video. Also, can't really remember much of this book. I just remember that it's about some kind of creature, so I guess the one that's on the cover, and that it plays in like a house and a villa, and that it's a very different structure from the way other novels usually are. And this was also, I think, on some short list for like the Women's Prize for Fiction or something. Definitely interested in this read. I've heard some good things about it and I've heard some not so good things, so it seems to be one of those either you love it or you hate it kind of books, but we'll see on which team I am. All right. We're slowly starting to finish one of the piles. So once again, a book I think I've already mentioned at some point, Writers and Lovers. I mainly picked this book from Book of the Month because I think this was one of the favorite books of Noelle Gallagher, and it's about a person who has just lost their mother. And it's about grief and the different sides of grief as far as I understand. So also very interested to dive into this book when I'm in a little bit of a melancholic mood. We'll see if that comes up anytime soon, but this is also still on my list. So, one other book over here that has been on my stack for ages, I don't know if I've talked about it or not, is Firekeeper's Daughter. Now, I picked this book mainly because it's a Native author, and I try to support Native authors as much as I can, even though there are literally no other Native authors. No, there's one other on this list, and that's kind of sad, honestly. I need to change that. But also, at Book of the Month, honestly, you don't really have Native authors that often, and so when I see them on Book of the Month, I will definitely get their book and choose that book, and this is one of those. However, I think this has like more elements of fantasy and stuff, and fantasy, really not my thing. I might procrastinate reading this, but I think I'm just gonna hype myself up and just read it at one point. Okay, another book that has been here for ages is On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous. A letter from a son to a mother who cannot read. Interesting. Okay, I'm not going to read anymore. You know what? I'm just going to leave it at that. That's very intriguing already. But I'm very excited to get to this. A lot of people really, really, absolutely love this book. So I think it's going to be a really nice read. It's also not too long. So this might be something that I can just read in between. Yeah, we'll see. Very excited to get to it. Let's keep going. There are still books, and this one is Upgrade. Now, I think I remember this month of Book of the Month, I kind of didn't like any of the options, but this one sounded pretty intriguing, just because it's more of a sci-fi book, and I think it is about the fact that you can like modify your genes and then like upload yourself. Don't exactly 100% know, but I always like experiments like that or thinking about stuff like that, because when it kind of pertains to what I study, because I studied, I don't study it anymore. When it pertains to what I studied, which was molecular biotechnology, I'm always kind of interested to see like how biotech or molecular biology like issues or ethics are portrayed in public, because I feel like a lot of them are so exaggerated that people have like a really bad opinion of biotechnology, like the whole scares around making gene babies and all that stuff. Like that's definitely something we need to talk about, but we're not exactly super close to that. Like gene editing at this point is getting safer, but I'm not sure if we're at that point yet where we're actually going to use it in humans, except if you're a Chinese scientist and you really want to, do your own thing, because it allows me to kind of understand why people are scared or what they might be scared of, and that, yeah, then can further the education. The next book on this list is Toni Morrison's Beloved, and I purchased this in one of these beautiful Everyman's Library editions. I just really love these editions for some of the classics. I'm kind of intimidated by this book, but I know so many people love it, and I think it's like a must read, definitely. So I'm probably still going to like it, but I don't know. I'm always a little intimidated by like classics and feel like, oh my God, what if I don't understand them? What if I'm too stupid to get this? But I just have to trust myself, just trust yourself. And if a lot of people like it and a lot of people have like access to this book or understand this book, why should I not? It should be possible. Let's keep talking about the next book, and this one I'm actually really excited about. This is called The Attic Child, also a Book of the Month book, and I was just super intrigued by this idea. So what this is about is basically two children that have never met each other because they live 100 years apart, but they are both like locked into the attic. But these children, even though they're 100 years apart, they still feel connected because in some ways they're in the same situation, or not in some ways. They are in the same situation. They're being locked in an attic. So I just thought this was a really intriguing premise, like what an interesting idea. And so I'm super interested to see where this book goes. And also the artwork of this cover, wonderful, really, truly wonderful. The next book over here is a nonfiction read, and it is called What White People Can Do Next. I feel like because of my thesis and because of my learning and studies and everything that I have been really focused on lately, I just haven't been able to do much to be a better ally. So I need to get back on that train. And what I do in my daily life is really try to talk to people about all kinds of topics that are very difficult. I need to learn like some more steps now at this point because I feel like there's always more that we can do. And so this sounded like a really good book to read. I mean, it's literally what white people can do next. So let's look into what I can do next. Okay, we're getting there, people. We are getting there. So the only other Native author on this list, unfortunately, is The Absolutely True Diary of a Part-Time Indian. This is by Sherman Alexie, and I actually read this book when I was in 11th grade. So I've already read this book, and I absolutely loved it back then, but in the move from when I moved out of my parents' place, I somehow lost the book, and it just disappeared mysteriously. Fun fact, I actually suggested we read this book in class, and we did. So I was really happy about that my teacher actually took the time to read this book, because once again, Germans have this tendency to romanticize Native Americans, and I think it's very important for them to learn like the reality of living conditions of natives in the States and why we're there, and maybe that'll, get him to wear less costumes. This is an amazing book. This is a book about a Native American that lives on a reservation. It's a young teenager that has some form of birth defect, I can't remember, and because of that looks a little weird, or says himself he looks a little weird. And he's very good at drawing comics, and eventually he kind of realizes, I'm really good at school, I'm really good at all kinds of things, and I want to have some form of a future, but unfortunately the school on my reservation is just not going to be able to give me that or offer that what I need. So he goes to a school off the reservation in the local town, like basically the white school. That's a culture shock, to say it mildly. This book is a super easy read. If you're a non-native speaker, this might also be interesting to you because it is really, really, truly easy to read. And because the protagonist of the book also is really good at drawing comics, you can, look at the comics that he draws and it just makes it all very cool. It's very sad at some points, but it's written in a very light, sarcastic manner. So even though you're talking about very difficult topics, it's not necessarily a book that you sob over. It's one of those books that you finish quickly and then you just think about them for a very long time. And so I'm glad my dad regifted this to me on Christmas. So this is, I think, one of the 10-year anniversary editions or the 20-year anniversary editions. And he gave this to me for Christmas because I lost my first edition and now I'm rereading this. This is another book that my dad gave me for Christmas, and I am super excited about this book because this is about Rosalind Franklin, who actually discovered DNA, or the structure of DNA. I know that Watson and Crick were the ones that you might have heard in biology class. However, Watson and Crick stole the original information from Rosalind Franklin and then got the Nobel Prize for figuring out the structure of the DNA, and Rosalind Franklin was not credited. Are we surprised? Probably not. So this is a book basically on Rosalind Franklin and her story. It focuses on her. So I'm super excited my dad picked this up. This is like the perfect book for me. I love reading books about science, and women in science is always a very sad thing. But yeah, I'm super excited for this book. I mean, this could not be better for me as a biotechnologist reading this. Amazing. All right, we are getting to the last 3 books. I promise, we're almost done. So the book that I have here is Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow. And this was my freebie basically because it was Book of the Year 2022 for Book of the Month. And if you're a BFF status, which I am, you get the Book of the Year book for free, which is pretty exciting. And it is really good. I'm really sucked in. But the idea, or the basic idea behind this book, is that 2 friends design a game together, and this game is so successful that they go on to be like super rich, super famous for their games, and then life happens. I don't know, I'm not going to say any more. I think I'm going to make a reading vlog around this book. I just started it this morning, so I think I can still vlog a little, and then you can hear more of my thoughts on this book because I already love it. I already know this is a favorite. And I love this artwork too because we actually have this exact picture that's in the background of this book on our wall over there. So really, really intrigued already, and I already know it's a favorite. It's making me think. It's making me think. So I'm very excited about it. Oop, I lied to you. Now we're at the last 3 books. I didn't see this little one. This little book is Giovanni's Room by James Baldwin, also an absolute classic, especially an LGBTQ classic. I've heard so many good things about this book. I don't really know what it's about. I've just heard many, many good things, and it's really short, so I figured, you know what, I'm just going to pick this up and read this very soon. So yeah, that's Giovanni's Room. All right, we're almost there, people. This book is called Jacqueline in Paris. This is actually the type of book cover I don't really like. This is the reason why very often I don't pick up historical fiction, or why for the longest time I didn't read historical fiction. I judged a book by its cover. I know, you're not supposed to do that. But just don't like this cover. But it is basically about Jacqueline Kennedy, who is in Paris after the Second World War, and how she spent her time there. Now, I believe this is historical fiction, so it's not like really biographical, but it probably like leans on her story and leans on stuff that she did when she was in Paris after the war, I guess, that shaped her as a young woman before she became a Kennedy. So this sounded super interesting to me. I was like, hey, okay, that sounds kind of cool. I don't really know anything about the Kennedys at all, so except for one was assassinated. So why not check this out? All right, we are at the last book, and it is Babel. Now, I think I've heard good things about this. I'm not sure, but this is also historical fiction, as far as I know. Let's read. Let's see what this little thing says. From award-winning author R.F. Kuang comes Babel, a historical fantasy epic that grapples with student revolutions, colonial resistance, and the use of language and translation as the dominating tool of the British Empire. I don't know. I think I read exactly that and was like, intrigued. Because the British Empire was actually like crazy big. We did a lot of reading on the British Empire when I was doing my Abitur, which is kind of like the A levels in Germany, or like it's equivalent to an associate's degree in the States, but it's like what we do at the end of school before we enter university. So it's like the last exams. And we did a lot about the British Empire. And I think back then I was also kind of like, damn, it's big. And ever since watching The Crown, like I've understood like more and more and more of the British Empire. And I know The Crown may not be the best thing to study history, but I feel like The Crown does give you a lot of insight into certain historical periods. And what I've done then in episodes where I was intrigued, I would usually Google it and then read like the Wikipedia on the actual factual history. So the British Empire was super huge, and I mean, obviously super influential, otherwise the states wouldn't exist, so kind of important in history. So yeah, I saw this and I was like, intrigued, intrigued. All right, we just had perfect timing. My boyfriend just came home right after I stopped showing you the last book, so this is the end of the video. I showed you all of the books that I didn't read last year that are just lying around here at home. I of course have some other like unread books in my bookshelf, but those are books that I've maybe like tried to read in the past and just didn't enjoy much at that time, but where I thought, you know what, this still has potential. I might read it in the future. But these are the books that I've had like no interaction with whatsoever. And so I figured I would show you these books. This is basically my TBR for the year, so it's not really any specific day. Obviously, I can't do this in 1 month. And I just want to slowly start with the reading again because, like I said, this graduate degree, this thesis just really sucked all of the life out of me, and I'm just slowly starting to become a person again. So this is all of the books that I kind of collected last year and that I hopefully will get to this year. We'll see how well I do at the end of the year. But yeah, thanks so much for hanging out with me. Let me know in the comments what you're looking forward this year. Which books are you excited to read? Do you have anything? Let me know in the comments because I would love to hear from you. And we'll see each other next week. Bye.